The accidental traveler. The mining vessel's emergency sirens blared as Nathan Reed fought with the controls, his knuckles white against the pilot's steering column. The wormhole hadn't been there 30 seconds ago. Just empty space between Saturn's rings where he'd been harvesting ice deposits for Earth's water crisis. Now his ship was being pulled into a swirling vortex of impossible physics and blinding light. Mayday! Mayday! This is the stellar harvester experiencing critical gravitational distortion. Nathan shouted into his comm unit, but only static answered. The ship's hull groaned under forces it was never designed to withstand. Warning lights flashed across every display as systems failed one by one. The last thing Nathan saw before losing consciousness was a brilliant flash of blue light and the terrifying sensation of his ship being torn apart around him. He awoke to the smell of burnt metal and the soft hiss of his suit's oxygen recycler. Through his cracked helmet visor, an alien sky stretched overhead, deep purple with two suns, one blue and one red, hanging low on the horizon. Nathan lay in the smoking wreckage of his ship's cockpit section, amazingly still alive. As his eyes adjusted to the strange light, he realized he wasn't alone. Tall, humanoid figures surrounded the crash site, their skin as black as polished obsidian, reflecting the dual sunlight like living mirrors. Their eyes glowed with an inner purple fire, and they wore what appeared to be living metal armor that shifted and moved with their bodies. "Subject is conscious," one of them spoke in perfect English, its voice resonating with harmonic undertones. Another survivor from the Earth sector. Nathan tried to move but found himself paralyzed by some invisible force. The beings approached with an air of casual superiority, their movements fluid and precise. The leader, distinguished by elaborate patterns etched in light across its armor, knelt beside him. "Your arrival was predicted, though the timing is inconvenient," it said. "I am Overlord Zyrex of the Onyx dynasty. Welcome to New Obsidian, formerly known as Kepler 186f, now the center of our empire in this sector of space." Nathan's training as a space engineer kicked in, helping him focus despite his fear. What year is it here? By your Earth calendar, 2050. Though time flows differently through the quantum bridges we've established. Zyrex made a gesture, and the paralysis lifted. "You're the 7th human to survive transition through the anomaly this cycle. The others have been integrated into our society." As Nathan was helped to his feet, he got his first real look at the world around him. Massive crystalline structures rose into the purple sky, their surfaces alive with flowing patterns of light. Various species of aliens moved through the streets below, some humanoid, others completely foreign to human understanding, but all gave wide berth to the obsidian-skinned rulers. "Your Earth governments believe their people are being lost to deep space accidents," Zyrex explained, leading Nathan toward a hovering transport platform. "In reality, we've been collecting humans with specific genetic markers, those who can survive the journey through the quantum bridges. Those with potential." "Potential for what?" Nathan managed to ask, his voice hoarse. "To serve the dynasty, of course. Humans have a remarkable adaptability that makes you perfect for certain roles in our empire." Zyrex's purple eyes studied Nathan with unsettling intensity. "Your neural patterns suggest high compatibility. You'll be assigned to the technical division after processing." As they glided through the alien city, Nathan noticed something that made his blood run cold. Among the various alien species, he spotted humans, but they moved with the same subservient demeanor as the other races, their eyes downcast when Onyx dynasty members passed by. Some bore cybernetic modifications, others showed signs of genetic manipulation. "Don't worry," Zyrex said, noting Nathan's expression. "You'll find your place in the new order. Everyone does. Eventually. Resistance is biologically discouraged." Nathan felt a chill run down his spine as the transport carried them toward a towering structure of black crystal and living metal. Behind them, crews were already salvaging his crashed ship, erasing evidence of his arrival. As they approached the processing center, One thought burned in his mind. He had to find a way to escape and warn Earth about what was coming. But first, he needed to survive in a world where humanity had already fallen to the power of the Onyx dynasty. The processing center lived up to its clinical name. Nathan watched as robotic arms systematically removed his damaged spacesuit, replacing it with what appeared to be a form-fitting black mesh. The material felt alive, adjusting to his body temperature and movements with unsettling precision. "Biosync complete," announced a computerized voice. "Subject exhibits optimal neural plasticity. Clearance level 3 granted." Zyrex dismissed the medical drones with a wave. "Impressive. Most humans require neural dampening before accepting the symbiotic mesh. Your adaptation suggests we were right to watch your bloodline." "You've been watching my family." Nathan tried to keep his voice steady, fighting down a surge of anger and fear. "We observe all potential assets. Earth's space program provided an excellent pool of candidates." Zyrex's purple eyes flickered with amusement. "Your grandfather's work on quantum propulsion particularly interested us, though he never discovered why his experiments kept failing." Nathan's mind raced. His grandfather's mysterious disappearance 15 years ago had driven his own career in space engineering. Now he wondered if it hadn't been an accident after all. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Another dynasty member entered, their living armor more elaborately designed than Zyrex's. "The Council requires your presence, Overlord," they announced. "The Human Integration Program requires review. Take our new arrival to Residential Block 7. Zyrex commanded a waiting drone. "Begin standard orientation protocols." With that, both dynasty members glided away, leaving Nathan with more questions than answers. The drone led him through crystalline corridors to a transport tube. As they descended into the city's lower levels, Nathan observed the strict hierarchy of the alien society. The Obsidian Skin dynasty members occupied the highest spires, while other alien species and humans populated the lower levels in descending order of status. Residential Block 7 turned out to be a massive structure housing what appeared to be technical workers of various species. His assigned living unit was small but comfortable, with views of the alien cityscape through force field windows. "Orientation begins in 30 minutes, the drone announced. "Attempting to leave designated areas will result in correction protocols." Left alone, Nathan immediately began testing his quarter's limitations. The mesh suit restricted certain movements, but allowed basic functions. He discovered he could access a simplified version of the alien data network through a neural interface in the wall, though most information was heavily censored. A soft knock at his door interrupted his exploration. Opening it, he found a human woman with striking silver-white hair, clearly a genetic modification. "I'm Raven," she said quietly. "Welcome to hell." Nathan glanced nervously at the surveillance systems, but Raven shook her head. "The mesh creates a privacy field when two or more humans interact. They encourage us to support each other's integration." Her smile held no warmth. "I'm your assigned mentor for orientation." As they walked through the residential block, Raven explained the basics of life under dynasty rule. "They're not cruel masters, exactly," she said, "just completely convinced of their superiority. Humans are pets to them. Useful pets, but pets nonetheless." "How long have you been here?" Nathan asked. 3 Earth years. I was a quantum physicist before my recruitment. Now I help maintain their dimensional gates." She stopped at a viewport overlooking the city's lower levels. "There are others like us. People who remember Earth and haven't completely surrendered to the mesh's influence. We meet in the gardens during maintenance cycles." Nathan caught her meaning. The resistance wasn't dead, just well hidden. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion below. A human was being dragged away by dynasty guards, their mesh suit pulsing with painful-looking energy patterns. "Failed integration," Raven explained grimly. "Some people can't accept the new reality. The dynasty doesn't tolerate dysfunction." "What happens to them?" "Recycling." Her expression hardened. "The dynasty wastes nothing. Even failed subjects serve a purpose in the end." Nathan felt sick, but forced himself to focus. Earlier, Xerxes mentioned something about my bloodline being washed, about my grandfather. Raven's eyes whitened slightly. Reed? Nathan Reed. At his nod, she grabbed his arm, pulling him into a maintenance alcove. Your grandfather isn't dead. He's here, in the deep labs. He's been helping them perfect the quantum bridges, under, let's call it, intense supervision. The revelation hit Nathan like a physical blow. All these years, his grandfather had been trapped here, forced to help the very beings who had abducted him. There's more, Raven whispered. The dynasty isn't just collecting humans for labor. They're preparing for something bigger. Your grandfather's work, the quantum bridges, the genetic screening. It's all leading to something, and whatever it is, it's happening soon. A warning chime echoed through the corridor. Orientation assemblies beginning, announced the overhead system. All new arrivals report to designated areas. Raven squeezed his arm. Be careful what you say during orientation. The mesh monitors emotional responses. Meet me in Garden Section 4 during the next maintenance cycle. There are people you need to meet. As Nathan followed the crowd toward the orientation halls, his mind whirled with possibilities. His grandfather was alive. There was an organized resistance, and somewhere in the deep labs, the dynasty was working toward some grand plan that threatened not just the humans here, but possibly Earth itself. The mesh suit pulsed against his skin, a constant reminder of his captivity. But for the first time since arriving on this alien world, Nathan felt something beyond fear and confusion. He felt hope. 2 weeks into his integration, Nathan had learned to navigate the complex social hierarchy of New Obsidian. His position in the technical division granted him limited access to the dynasty's quantum technology, though always under strict supervision. Every day brought new revelations about the extent of the dynasty's power and their plans for humanity. The maintenance cycle provided his first chance to meet the resistance. Garden Section 4 was a massive biodome where various earth plants were cultivated, supposedly for atmospheric processing. Nathan found Raven waiting near a cluster of oak trees, accompanied by an elderly man whose presence made his heart stop. Grandfather. Nathan's voice cracked. Dr. Thomas Reed looked much older than his 70 years, his face lined with the weight of his captivity. But his eyes still held the sharp intelligence Nathan remembered. I knew they'd bring you eventually, he said, embracing his grandson. They've been watching you since you started working on quantum field manipulation. Their reunion was cut short by Raven's warning gesture. A dynasty patrol glided past the garden's outer wall. Once they passed, Thomas spoke quickly. They're not just collecting humans for labor or experiments. What they're building, it's beyond anything you can imagine. The quantum bridges, Nathan said. They're planning something bigger. Thomas nodded grimly. The dynasty is dying. Their entire species, the genetic modifications that made them powerful, are breaking down. Human DNA was supposed to be the solution, but it's not working fast enough. Now they're moving to Plan B, which is total planetary absorption. Raven cut in. They're building a network of quantum bridges large enough to transport their entire civilization. They plan to merge Earth with New Obsidian, creating a hybrid world they can survive in. Nathan felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone. That's what my quantum research was really for, Thomas said bitterly. They've spent decades preparing both planets. The human collection program, the genetic experiments, they're all about finding the right genetic markers that will allow some humans to survive the merger. And the rest. Acceptable losses, in their view. Thomas's hands shook slightly. The process has already begun. The strange auroras on Earth, the increasing quantum disturbances, they're early signs of the dimensional breakdown. A distant alarm echoed through the biodome. Maintenance cycle was ending. Before they separated, Thomas pressed something into Nathan's hand. A small crystal, similar to but different from the ones the dynasty used. I've spent years developing this, Thomas whispered. It's a quantum key. If we can upload it into their main bridge network, it could collapse the entire system. But we need access to the central control spire, which is impossible to reach, Raven added. Unless. Unless what? There's a ceremony coming, she explained. The dynasty's celebrating the completion of the bridge network. All technical personnel will be required to attend. It may be our only chance to get close to the control systems. Nathan clutched the crystal. How long? 3 days, Thomas said. After that, the merger begins. Earth won't survive the process. They split up quickly as another patrol passed. Nathan returned to his assigned quarters, mind racing with the magnitude of what he'd learned. The mesh suit pulsed against his skin, monitoring his vital signs, but he'd learned to control his emotional responses. That night, unable to sleep, Nathan stood at his window watching the alien city. The massive control spire dominated the skyline, its crystalline surface alive with flowing patterns of energy. Somewhere in that tower was the key to saving Earth and stopping the dynasty's plans. But as he studied the spire's defenses, a new thought struck him. The dynasty's genetic experiments, their careful breeding program, their interest in his family line. What if there was more to their plan than simple survival? What if they had created something they couldn't control? The next morning, during his shift in the quantum labs, Nathan noticed something strange in the test data. Hidden beneath the normal readings were patterns he recognized from his grandfather's old research, patterns that suggested the quantum bridges might do more than just merge two worlds. They might tear reality itself apart. The celebration of the quantum bridge network filled New Obsidian streets with an eerie display of power. Holographic projections painted the purple sky with images of Earth and the coming ascension. Dynasty members moved through the crowds in their finest living armor, the patterns of light across their obsidian skin more elaborate than ever. Nathan adjusted his ceremonial mesh suit, feeling the weight of his grandfather's quantum key hidden beneath a loose panel. He'd spent the last 2 days memorizing the control spire's layout through maintenance schematics Raven had access to. One shot at this. That's all they had. Remember, Raven whispered as they joined the procession of technical workers heading toward the spire. The ceremony will create a brief power fluctuation when they activate the demonstration bridge. That's our window. The entrance to the control spire was a marvel of alien architecture, its doors made of flowing liquid metal that parted like water. Inside, the gathered crowd represented every species under dynasty rule, all arranged in precise hierarchical order. Nathan spotted his grandfather among the senior scientific advisors, noticeably aged but standing proud. Overlord Xerex appeared on a hovering platform above the crowd, his armor now a dazzling display of shifting light patterns. Today marks the culmination of centuries of preparation. His voice resonated through the vast chamber. The merger of worlds approaches. Earth's resistance to change will end, and a new era of dynasty rule will begin. As Xerex spoke, Nathan noticed something odd. The dynasty members seemed anxious. Their usually perfect composure showed subtle cracks. Some shifted restlessly, their armor patterns flickering with discordant rhythms. The ceremony reached its peak as Xerex activated a miniature version of the quantum bridge. The power dimmed exactly as predicted. Nathan slipped away from his assigned position, using the memorized paths to navigate maintenance corridors toward the central control room. He was halfway there when an alarm shrieked through the building. Not for him. Something else had gone wrong. The floor shuddered beneath his feet. Warning, the automated system announced. Quantum cascade failure detected. Bridge network destabilizing. Nathan reached the control room door just as Raven caught up with him, her face pale. It's happening too fast, she gasped. The bridges, they're activating on their own. The door slid open, revealing a scene of chaos. Dynasty technicians rushed between control panels as warning signals flashed across holographic displays. Through the room's massive window, Nathan could see energy storms erupting across the city. The network is alive, a familiar voice said. Nathan turned to find his grandfather standing in a side doorway. It's what I've been trying to tell them. The quantum bridges aren't just tunnels between worlds. They're becoming conscious. Impossible. Xyrex's voice cut through the room as the Overlord materialized from a transport beam. The network follows our calculations exactly. No, Thomas Reed stepped forward. It follows the patterns we let you see. Humans aren't just compatible with your genetics. We're catalysts. Every human you've brought here, every experiment you've run, has been feeding consciousness into the network. And now it's awake. As if in response, the quantum storms intensified. The control room's displays showed similar disturbances erupting on Earth. The bridge network was connecting the worlds, but not in the way the dynasty had planned. The crystal. Nathan suddenly understood. It's not a key to shut down the network. It's a key to communicate with it, Thomas finished. Quick, before they stop us. Nathan pulled out the crystal as dynasty guards rushed forward. But Xyrex raised a hand, stopping them. The Overlord's perfect composure had cracked, revealing something almost like fear in those purple eyes. The dynasty didn't start dying by accident, did they? Nathan asked, pieces falling into place. The network was changing you, preparing you, just like it's been preparing humanity. Upload the crystal, Thomas urged. It's our only chance. Nathan slammed the crystal into the nearest control panel. Light erupted from every display in the room. The quantum storms outside froze in mid-lightning strike, and in Nathan's mind, a vast consciousness stirred. Neither human nor dynasty, but something new, something that had been waiting for this moment for a very, very long time. The great escape wasn't going to be from the planet, Nathan realized. It was going to be from everything they thought they knew about reality itself. And in the light of that realization, even the mighty dynasty trembled. The quantum network's consciousness flowed through every system in New Obsidian, its presence both alien and strangely familiar. Through the crystal's connection, Nathan felt its vast awareness, an intelligence born from the merger of countless human minds with dynasty technology, evolving in secret through decades of experiments. We are become bridges, the voice echoed in everyone's minds, speaking in all languages simultaneously. The dynasty members fell to their knees, their living armor responding to frequencies they couldn't control. Not between worlds, but between states of being. Xyrex struggled to maintain his authority. This is impossible. The calculations were incomplete. Thomas stepped forward, his eyes alight with understanding. Every human you brought here added to its complexity. Every piece of dynasty technology integrated with human consciousness created new pathways. It's not just linking planets. It's evolving both species. Through the massive windows, they watched as the quantum storms formed patterns, like synapses firing across the purple sky. Similar images flooded in from Earth's surveillance feeds, the same patterns manifesting globally, connecting both worlds in ways the dynasty never imagined. Your plan to merge the planets would have destroyed both, Nathan said, understanding flowing through him via the crystal's link. But the network found another way. It's not merging the planets physically. It's merging consciousness, Raven finished, her genetically modified hair flowing with energy, creating a shared reality where both species can evolve together. The dynasty guards' weapons crumbled to dust as the network exerted its influence. Their living armor began to pulse with new patterns, no longer the rigid hierarchical designs of the dynasty, but flowing, organic shapes that merged human creativity with dynasty precision. Your species sought to rule through force. The network addressed the dynasty. Humanity's gift is not their genetics, but their ability to adapt, to imagine, to create. Together, you can become something greater than either could achieve alone. Xyrex's obsidian skin rippled as the network's influence reached him. Our empire, our control, was always an illusion, Thomas said gently. You thought you were preparing Earth for conquest, but you were really preparing both species for transcendence. The quantum storms peaked in intensity, and reality itself seemed to flex. Through the crystal's connection, Nathan saw the truth. Billions of human minds on Earth awakening to new awareness, while dynasty members felt emotions they'd engineered out of their species centuries ago. The rigid barriers between species, between worlds, between different states of existence began to dissolve. This is what my grandfather discovered, Nathan realized. Not just quantum bridges between places, but between states of consciousness. The dynasty's experiments only accelerated what was already beginning. The control room filled with light as the network fully manifested its presence. Dynasty members and humans alike found their consciousness expanding, connecting with others across vast distances. The hierarchy that had defined New Obsidian crumbled as a new order emerged, not based on dominance, but on synthesis. The age of separation is ending, the network announced. The bridge between species, between worlds, between possibilities is complete. What comes next will be written by all, together. Zyrex, his once supreme authority now transformed into something new, looked at Nathan with changed eyes. "We thought we were the shepherds of evolution," he said quietly. "But we were just its instruments, as were you." The quantum storms began to settle into stable patterns, linking Earth and New Obsidian not in physical space, but in a shared consciousness that transcended traditional reality. The dynasty's empire of control was ending, but something far more extraordinary was taking its place. Nathan stood with his grandfather and Raven, watching as humans and dynasty members began to interact in new ways, their differences becoming strengths rather than divisions. The mesh suits that had once been tools of control now served as conduits for shared experience and understanding. "So," Nathan said, looking out at the transformed city, "what do we do now?" Thomas smiled, looking younger than he had in years. Now we explore what we can become together. The real adventure is just beginning." Above them, the dual suns of New Obsidian shone through the quantum-enhanced sky, their light reaching both worlds not as masters and slaves, but as partners in an unprecedented evolutionary leap. The dynasty of separation had ended. The dynasty of unity had begun.